RTD Live Talk, Detroit's #1 late night YouTube talk show. We are live for another live stream. Excited to be back behind the microphone, ready to check in and talk about something I think is very important because September is going to be a hot month, and I'm not talking about the weather. And so want to cover a couple of things that's on my mind, as well as get a chance to check back in and find out what I've missed as I've attempted to unplug and to recalibrate and get ready for a rough next 2 months plus this political warfare that we're also experiencing as well. So that being the case, welcome to this live stream. My name is Mike, the host of RTD Live Talk, Detroit's #1 late night show. And I want to find out any new viewers. Let me know where you're watching from. Would love to welcome you into the stream, as well as welcome you into the community. And then also, because there's so many different subject matters that we cannot touch in one show, I'm curious to find out what else is out there. So definitely going to open up the phone lines, and I would love to hear from you guys. All right, so let me check in via chat real quick, and then I'm going to dive into some articles and share with you my thoughts on this week, which I think will play a major part in history moving forward. I think the way that everything's been set up from the mainstream narrative is that all eyes will be on Jackson Hole, the virtual meeting this year, waiting on Jerome Powell. And so it's one of those things where all eyes are on him. And of course, whenever he speaks, the markets move. But regardless of whatever he says, the markets will go up for the ones that has benefited most from this artificial economy. And it might become a little bit tougher for those that may not have benefited. So okay, so let me stop ranting and get right into acknowledging a couple people here. We got King D. We got Bobcat Bryn. We got Michael Whiteside. We got Dueling Dragons. We got Jim Diggs, JoJo, Barlight Broker, Army of One, Who Me, Philman, Tony B in the building, Dexter. How you guys doing, man? Yeah, excited to catch back up with you. And so I see a couple thoughts out there. And so Philman, I did share an article on how Germany is looking to roll out universal basic income to about $1,400 per person. And so yeah, definitely that's something that it's going to be universal basic allowance. It's a part of the equation. And I think a lot of what Jerome Powell says today will speed up a lot of the things that the United States government will have to respond to, because regardless of what is said, I know that the policies implemented will be disastrous for Main Street and very beneficial for Wall Street until it's not. And so we're going to touch on that. All right, so let me I just want to touch on a couple articles here, and then we'll talk about whatever else is out there worthy of talking about. I know they got the RNC meeting tonight, or the broadcast, and so not really staying in touch with that, or last week's for that matter. And so then also, let me see here. Solo says, Mike, you see Virginia is going to mandate a, yeah. So I saw that, yeah. And so for those that may not be aware, I actually posted that on the Facebook page. So let me see if I can find that real quick. But it's one of those things where he mentioned that, as you know, I think it was the health minister or whatnot, or the health, whoever's in charge of the health department there in the state, said that as soon as it's ready, it's going to be mandatory as long as I'm in this position. So hopefully, you know, by him basically spilling the beans out the bag a little too soon, because I'm assuming he was not supposed to say that as a part of the whole the plan that is already in place by the health departments themselves, by state. And so hopefully Virginians realize what they're up against, and they find out a way to get that man up out of there right away, because he's definitely not on the people's side of this equation. So, all right. So let me stop ranting. Your sound's bad. Okay, so I will attempt to move back from the microphone and speak into it. And so Tony Blaylock says VA is jawbony. Yeah, we will see. We will see. All right, so all right, let me get to this first article here. As always, I want to just thumb through it because I had a chance to read it, but I got several different viewpoints from different mainstream media sources, and all the mainstream sources have painted this upcoming Thursday's meeting as being something that will be historical in nature, given the fact that Jerome Powell, who has been given charge of our national currency through the monopolizing of the financial system and monetary system and everything of that nature, has they're preaching the inflation narrative. And so, as he's always been mentioning from day one, they have enough tools in the toolkit to make sure that they'll be more than accommodative if need be. And we're experiencing what I was gonna say. I want to say a contractionary spiral of lack of credit being extended to those that actually want it, and then a massive amount of debts and delinquencies and you name it that's also showing up on this on the bank's balance sheets or lack thereof. And so, at the end of the day, those lending facilities and those windows that have been created that have not been utilized will be heavily utilized after this current speech is given on Thursday. That's just my personal opinion there, because all the framework has been laid for them to provide as much quantitative easing as needed to heat up things a little bit. And so this article here, for those that may not have a chance to see it, of course, it's CNBC, taken for what it's worth, but it starts off by talking about the difference between Paul Volcker in the early 80s and Jerome Powell right now. And so once again, Paul Volcker was given credit for getting the inflation under control by spiking interest rates to some astronomical, I think it got up to 20% or something like that, which for those that were saving currency would have been very beneficial. You would have got a nice chunk of change on your funds. And speaking of which, some of the mapping that I showed earlier would highlight some of the reasons as to why that was, because the government was actually paying people. Whereas now the government's not paying you, they're actually borrowing from you and giving you back less. So anyway, so Jerome Powell here has a completely different situation, is that according to their measurements, the PCE, they have not been able to reach their inflationary targets. And so they are behind the curve. And so it looks like, and what they're anticipating him talking about is basically overshooting that 2% by looking to average out the inflation target period. And so basically this speech coming up, what I'm anticipating is a redefining of how they're going to look for inflation. And of course, if anybody knows how to actually look for inflation, it's everywhere around you. But it's more so, how can inflation benefit Wall Street? And that happens to be in the equities markets, as well as all the other financial institutions and hedge funds, you name it, those that are suffering right now due to zero, actually negative interest rate environments. And so they need to provide more quantitative easing is ultimately what it boils down to. So it's going to create a great environment for the institutions that are suffering right now because they can't seem to get return on any of their investments. And so the quantitative easing will allow them to take on more on their balance sheet, referring to the central bank, by buying equities directly through the ETFs as well as bonds, you name it, while further squeezing out your average person. And so, of course, there's articles out here about how the food lines are growing, more delinquencies, more complete chaos out there. But yet we're entering into September where the politicians haven't gotten on the same page, and they will not be on the same page as to how they will actually help Main Street anymore. And so things are going to get really serious real soon. And I bet you by the end of this week, we're going to find out how dirty both sides of the aisle can get when it comes to what might be our last election of this kind. But anyway, enough ranting. And so this article here, it just talks about, Jackson Hole and how the speech that Jerome Powell is giving, it's entitled, as it says here, the Monetary Policy Framework Review, and it wraps up a year-long examination both among central banks officials and with the public. And so a part of this will be the fact that the 2% inflation, that is going to be what will go down in history books as something that is going to be sold to us that they have not been able to meet that goal. And so they're going to change the way they are able to get that goal, overshooting it, causing more problems for a lot more people. And what it boils down to is it's going to force the people who were able to save, because at the video I did earlier, if you guys get a chance to see that, I talk a lot about how over 60% of the population really don't have assets or emergency funds whatsoever. And so it's going to do two things. This speech will do two things for the average person after Thursday. It's going to put pressure on the government to come out with some type of fiscal response, because the prices of consumer goods now, we're going to be talking about, starting this already, the price of consumer goods starting to become obviously more expensive, therefore creating much more of a pinch on those that are already being priced out of everything for the most part. Therefore, we're going to see all types of real issues coming up really soon. It's going to become mainstream. And so a lot of the articles I'm going to share with you happens to be isolated events, but yet we all know that there's more than enough people. And I'd imagine that you guys know family, friends that may not be in the greatest shape right now. And that's just from what we know. But then also the ultimate goal is to put more pressure on the individual to come out of those savings. And so what we've witnessed over the last couple of months was that more people, whether it be through the unemployment stuff or whatever else, tap into their savings or retirements or whatever. So the goal for the central bank as we go through this last hoorah is for people to feel the pinch and pain to start spending, i.e. driving up consumer goods, as well as the government needing to make some decisions as to how they're going to continue to subsidize themselves. And so there's two ways of doing it. We all see that Trump has about 1.8 trillion locked up in a savings account. So for once, the federal government actually has some form of a savings as far as the Treasury balance sheet having 1.8 trillion that was put in there when the government borrowed during the CARES Act. And so that's Trump's emergency fund to help him get through the tough times that he's going to face as the Democrats try to do everything they can to be very problematic for him. And then also, it's going to boil down to how much else will the government be willing to borrow before this year is over with, which once again only causes more problems because the currency, faith and confidence in currency will continue to be a problem. So we're going to get into that. So this article here, it's kind of lengthy in nature, but for those that enjoy getting a different perspective, I would encourage you to take time to read it. But the author here basically just paints a picture as to how all investors are waiting to find out what exactly will happen, because they know that if more accommodation isn't provided, then there is no recovery. And so basically, as I put in the title here, it's inflation or die trying. Like Jerome Powell, whatever comes out of his mouth will be good for Wall Street and bad for Main Street ultimately, because it's going to put that much more of a pinch on you and your pocket. And so that's that article in a nutshell for those that might want to dive into it. I'll actually put this in the chat, and I'm going to start ranting pretty soon and check in and find out what else is going on with you guys. And then, of course, as always, people, I'm pretty, I'm not quite sure why or how, but the dollar and the Dixie Index, the basket of currencies that carry weight amongst nations and whatnot for international trade and business operations in general, people are really, talking about how the dollar, once again, another article here saying that everything is paused right now, waiting to see what Jerome Powell talks about. And so basically, they're anticipating him targeting inflation, which could be beneficial for the Federal Reserve note, or it could be a situation where it lessens confidence in the Federal Reserve note, i.e., it continued to take a little bit of a dive in a downward spiral. But yet, once again, for those that look long term, if you know what's really in those baskets, all the currencies have been going down in relation to each other and in relation to what the true standard of measurement should be, which is gold, as well as soon to be silver. And so here it just talks about numbers of the Dixie, this is not what they're expecting. And so as of right now, it talks about it's at 93.31. But yet, once again, measured against something that's going to zero, how much value is that really? And so let me stop ranting. All right, so I got a couple more articles, but I'm going to stop ranting and open up and find out what's going on. I'll share these articles as we go along. And so Debt and Regret says the U.S. economy is the Titanic and Jay Powell is the iceberg. Okay, I like that analogy there. I appreciate the love offered to the channel. Now, so the Titanic analogy, I've been talking about that for maybe 2 or 3 years ago when it was introduced by one of my prior guests. And we've already hit the iceberg. The iceberg referring to the instrument that was in the water that was, everybody in the ship from a monetary bank standpoint, they already saw it coming. Central banks knew what they were doing. The Federal Reserve, knew about this day, this time frame a long time ago. It's a matter of extending as much credit as you can until you sink the ship. And that's kind of where we're at now. But the iceberg was officially struck back in 2007, 2008, when we had the banking issue there that exposed a leak in the system. And since then, they've been trying to patch it up, but yet they're no longer able to patch it up. So Jerome Powell will be the captain of the ship as it goes down, more than likely, because he's going to be the one that, of course, in the history books, if people are able to see through all this stuff here, they'll realize that he was the one that probably drove the nail in the coffin, the final nail in the coffin, with the permission of the banks themselves, which are the shareholders of the central bank. So, all right. So enough of me ranting on, man. Let me talk. Let me hear from you guys. What are your thoughts about this, Jerome Powell? What are you guys anticipating on seeing this Thursday or hearing this Thursday? As I mentioned, whatever he says, it has to be favorable for Wall Street. So it's going to be beneficial for them, but it's going to be more of a pinch on the mainstream economy, i.e. you and I. And therefore, what is that going to force us to have to do? It's going to mean we're going to come out of our pockets more than we anticipated for everyday goods and services. So, like was said months and months and months ago, taking advantage of the opportunity of buying a little bit more than what you probably would normally buy, so that you'll have a food reserve. And so not only do you have to have, some financial protection, some monetary insurance against all this quantitative easing that's about to come and through these lending windows, because once Wall Street gets the signal, you better believe that all the institutions that have been using all, I think, 11 facilities will definitely be trying to get some more liquidity to prop themselves up, because there is no more growth. There is no more recovering in the way that prior recessions might have been able to recover, as far as extending temporary credit until things kind of balance out, and then you can try to appear that things are normal. We're at the end of the line here, because once inflation, which is what Jerome Powell is so concerned about, reaches mainstream through everyday consumer items, that's when there's no going back officially. All right, so enough rant. Let me get these phone lines open. Let me hear from you guys. I'm curious to find out what's going on. What else am I missing? Anybody else want to chime in and share their 2 cents? Feel free to do so. Would love to hear from you. So let's talk. So I'll see here. It says we just dropped 500 Sunday at the food store and came home with the same amount as 300 would buy. Yeah, that's real talk there. All right. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
All right. What's going on, Mike? This is Dwayne calling from the Midwest. What's going on, brother?
I'm doing good, my friend. Dwayne from the Midwest. What are your thoughts on inflation and JP's speech or anything else?
I think that at this point, like you just brought out so accurately, there's not much room for growth. So I'm just praying that we can get out of this without a war.
Okay. Yeah.
because there's no room for growth, and it's like almost we're playing a game of who's going to blink first. Like, who's going to be that sovereign that's going to write down debt and just come out with it, or will they try to do that simultaneously?
Yeah.
Because we all know that Jerome Powell, see, they always talk about inflation and they're trying to hit inflation, but we know that they're really scared of deflation.
Right.
Because you can't tax deflation.
Right.
So in terms of inflation, you're looking for taxation on if salaries go up or prices go up to you guys. But if you and I make the same and the prices go down, and everybody competing for our dollars, then they can't tax deflation. And that's when we have government crumbles, and then that's when I believe that the war talks get to starting. But I'm praying that we can get out of this without a war. What are your thoughts?
That's okay. So yeah, so that's another thing. That's another card that can be pulled. So at this current moment, the deck is fully loaded in their hands. As when I refer to them as those who are orchestrating this whole event. And so technically speaking, we are already at war. And so the war we're in now happens to be the whole pandemic side of things, because every politician has mentioned, they use the words war, and everything that apart from the what's it called, the industrial complex, the Raytheons, the Lockheed Martins, all those typical war companies that benefit. It's been reversed to where now the pharmaceutical companies now are benefiting as well. And so I think we're already at war, just a different type of war as far as them needing an excuse to currently inflate the monetary base the way they are doing now. And so having an actual hot war is still on the table, and it's going to be triggered somehow, some way, if it is in the Middle East. So it's another card that can be played, because my personal opinion is that between now and the time election day is set to go off, we can get any card pulled and thrown our way in a way of trying to really disrupt what's going on. So I wouldn't put it past. Anything's possible at this point.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it now. I mean, even this election year, it just don't seem like an election year. I mean, I don't get the feel, even with the Democrats, Republicans, it just everybody can feel it. Even your callers feel it. I see the people in the chat. It's like we're feeling like it's like something's around the corner, and we know it's around the corner.
Yeah,
and we're just like waiting to see what it is. And I'm just really praying that people do what they need to do, prepare as much as you can, and stay prayed up. That's all I got.
Right.
I'll sit back and listen to the call.
Appreciate you, my man. Thanks for the insight.
No problem. Bye-bye.
So yeah, that's another great angle. And so right now, unfortunately, we, the people, are at the mercy of those that want to control the narrative of this transition that they're taking us through, called the Great Reset or whatever it's called. And so the war card is always on the table. And so, we're supposed to be in a fight an invisible enemy. Remember that, initially a couple months ago, an invisible enemy, and we're at war now, and they have to come in and save us by doing all these preemptive measurements of locking things down, And unfortunately, guess what? If we're at war against an unknown enemy, the people are the enemy combatants. And guess what? The weapons of mass destruction are. I would imagine you can figure that out real easily. So, let me know. Give me a call. Let's talk. Got another call here. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, Tim, Colorado.
Tim, how you doing, my friend?
Good. I haven't talked to you in a while.
Yes, sir. What's on your mind tonight? What are your thoughts about this inflation? What are prices in your neck of the woods looking like these days?
Oh, escalating big time.
Yeah, I imagine that. What else is going on with you, Tim?
I don't know. You just had to check out for a little bit, huh?
Yeah, man. I had to. I had to unplug, and it was my first time in 6 years doing this channel that I didn't do a video for an entire week. And so I was fiending to get back to some videos. I was attempted to do something. I'm like, no, I'm gonna take some time off, because the next couple of weeks I'm gonna have more than enough stuff to talk about, and vice versa. So yeah, I do feel a little bit rejuvenated, man. Huh?
Every day.
Yeah, every day.
Every day it's worth, what the heck?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And so right now we're officially heading into this political nightmare of the left and right going back and forth. And of course, Trump, he says the same thing every single time about what he's done. And then the Democrats are going to be very, loudmouth and outspoken as to how they need to do this and that, not talk about any real important issues whatsoever. Nobody's talking about anything truly on the surface of importance. We're all seeing through this as to the ramifications of who's in the White House beyond this point. And so that goes to the point earlier about this doesn't seem like a political season, because everything is so intense and everything feels like it's hanging off the cliff, and it can go over at any minute in a sense.
I was calling to depress you.
Oh no, I'm not. I can't be depressed, man. I gotta keep my head up and smile my way through it, my friend. But hey, let me get to some more calls. I appreciate you for calling in.
All right, brother. Well, you stay safe and keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what it is, man. That is what it is. That is what it is. Gas is $2.85 in Arco, Sacramento, California. Okay, so I had a couple thoughts I lost, but they'll come back to me. They were important. Let me get to this call here. Let me see where to go. Give me 1 second. I'll get you on here. Maybe I won't. Maybe I will. Let me see. All right, here we go. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Mike?
Hey there. How you doing? What's your name?
I'm doing good, man. My name is Roger. I'm still on the border here in Texas.
Okay, Roger.
And glad you got a week off. So that's good to hear that.
Yes, sir.
Anyway,
go ahead.
The caller, like a couple times ago, he didn't say much, but one thing he said that kind of like struck me was it doesn't seem like a regular political year, especially with what's at stake this election.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought earlier in the year before the COVID that Trump was a shoo-in, and I'm not a fan of either party. I'm just saying my observations, right?
Yeah.
And now it almost looks like Biden's a lock, and like not much is going on. I mean, I don't know. It's going to get interesting the next couple of months, but I think I would be bombarded with, signs here and there, and there are some advertisements on YouTube and stuff, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm saying, I would think that there'd be a whole more rattle, shaking, and it just seems kind of calm. I don't know. What's your opinion?
Yeah, and so it's just like I just hinted at a minute ago. We're definitely not, we're definitely not in your ordinary 4-year cycle of an election, because think about this year, and I haven't been paying attention to politics for that long to really nail this down. But when it came to the Republican side, there was no type of actual candidates running against Trump. Like, there was nothing. Trump was like, it was like, if you dare run against Trump, you'll be considered an outcast on one side of the aisle. Whereas on the left threw everybody they could, and they settled with Biden, knowing that he's not capable of actually doing it, because he's the oldest and the most senior of all the deep state they had left to throw at him. And so it's going to be the dirtiest. This next couple of weeks will be the dirtiest time frame in American history, because all gloves are off. Just throw whatever you can throw, whatever dirt you can dig up, whatever you can say about each other. There's no more respect amongst them. They are like actual supposedly enemies fighting against each other, while we're on the other side waiting for an outcome of which, no matter who wins, it's going to be ugly. Right. And so it's like, it's just a matter of, it's just like,
we lose. No matter who wins, I think we lose as the public.
Yeah,
we lose. And like I said, I'm curious to see where it's going, because like I said, it feels like we're just so late in the cycle. And honestly, this year I didn't want to vote for either candidate. I think I have to in the end, because I always have. But I think not only do I think it's going to get dirty, like you're saying, but I don't think that like Biden. I mean, could there be a better puppet? And I'm not saying nothing bad about the man or the party. I've always supported the party, but I'm just like, are these two guys in America the best we got? Really?
Yeah, and that's the problem, Mike. They're giving us less than the best, and we as American people, we have done nothing to demand more, and that's because we've been just completely brainwashed, dumbed down, and distracted to the point where it's not until, unfortunately, we lose everything that we were holding on to so dear as far as our rights, that at that point people are going to realize that they were duped on both sides, and what's coming is coming regardless. I think it's more so a matter at the speed at which it comes, because I'm more than confident that if Biden is outright president come January, whatever, he's going to throw whatever he's told to do, because he has a boss, like they all have a boss, but he's going to do something so radical. And no doubt, he already told us what he would do with the mandatory mask wearing. He would make it, he said he'll listen to the scientists and make it mandatory. And so what else do you think he's going to make mandatory? You know what I'm saying? Outright. It'll take a genius to figure that out.
Trying to explain, man. I mean, because it's like, it almost looks like the Democrats are in, and usually I support them, but it seems like they're going to go even more hardcore on math, on fucking printing money, it doesn't matter who wins.
Right.
We get the same results. But it looks like there's a design here of like, oh, we're going to bring in this party, and then the next party will come in 4 years, and we'll have the digital dollar already, and we'll have the solution.
Yeah.
And so I think they're going to play one party against the other, and the next party that comes in 4 years will usher in the solution, and God help us from that solution and what happens in the next 4 years. But hey, brother,
appreciate
from you. I'm just giving my opinion. Like it's looking nasty, man.
Yeah,
there's one thing
I agree.
It looks nasty, and it ain't the two politicians that look nasty. It looks like us, the United States people, man. It's looking nasty, and I'll listen for your comments.
All right, my man. Appreciate you for calling. Thanks for your insights. Yep. So yeah, there we go, man. That is the very truth. And on top of that, that's what I think the comment that was made in the chat here, where somebody mentioned ultimately who's calling the shots at the end of the day. And so the pharmaceutical industry has really stepped in big time. And we know from the event 201 that took place back in September, the same people leading the charge towards the vaccination process is also the people who were in on the meeting. So they had one big round table of what they wanted to do. And that's what it looks like is playing out. And if there's a smidget of this game plan being disrupted. So I got a couple people who I've talked to recently that talks about the whole COVID stuff is going to disappear after the election if Trump wins, of which I'm not sure how they came to that thought process. But if there's any smidgen of a chance of this process of going strictly towards mandatory everything that nobody in their right mind would want to do, it would be if Trump has a chance. Because as of now, he's become very lax on his protocol as far as wearing masks. I mean, he did the one little photo op or whatever. But yet, watching his acceptance speech today, I was looking as they were boarding a plane, and everybody who got in that plane, as far as the average worker at the White House, didn't have a mask on. So I'm thinking like they're obviously not really concerned with the whole pandemic side of things, as opposed to actually getting this win. Like they're going for the win for what? And so the question will be, if they get the win, will there be a dial down or dial back of the agenda? Because I believe that, Fauci hasn't been in the mix in quite some time. I believe, he's probably under a little heat because, once again, he's not the American doctor. He's a pharmaceutical doctor. But yet I think that, there could be a chance. But if Biden is solely the guy that gets in, ain't no chance, because it's good as gone officially. But once again, the Lord is on the throne. I'm gonna, praise him until anyway. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Mike, Tony from Oakland. How you doing?
T, how you doing, my friend? What's on your mind tonight? What's your thoughts on this situation?
What's that?
What's your thoughts on this inflation situation, on this Jackson Hole situation, or this political warfare that we're in the midst of?
We're in deflation now.
Yeah.
And the Fed, they can't get it up to 2%. That's why the Fed has no power. It lost its power. And he can't get that up to 2%. If he could, he would.
Yeah.
And that's my opinion. You the Fed, you printing money, you big shot baller.
Yeah.
Let's see you do it.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
Now what?
And what they're doing is relying on us to do it for them.
Mm-hmm. And they're going to put pressure on us. They're going to squeeze that, whatever they're missing, they're going to squeeze it out of the average consumer's pocket in the form of consumer good prices, which is what they're going to, what they're not even measuring. That's the problem. They can't find it because they're not measuring the right damn thing. But anyway.
True, but they're only doing it to us.
Yeah.
China's still up and running.
Yeah.
There's other countries up and running. Why ain't we up and running?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a part of the political back and forth of, we need to shut things down so that we can. But yet, once again, Joe Biden said that he would shut down no problems if the scientists told him to, type of thing. So, believe me, we're nowhere near the middle of all this unraveling. We're still in the beginning phases, unfortunately.
Yeah, but they can't shut us down. Not again. Not like they did before. They can't. Otherwise, it's game over.
Very true.
I know that.
Very true. But they can pull the plug on some things that will be quite essential to keeping an economy running.
That's what they're doing now.
Right.
California shut down. But I can go to Indiana and Michigan and probably sit at a restaurant inside just as long as I'm 6 feet away and pull my mask down. But when I get up to go use the bathroom, I have to pull it back up.
Yeah, and we got the same thing in Michigan here. I think Indiana, according to what I've seen and what I've witnessed, is the most free state so far, because they got actual sports activities and everything else in between. But anyway.
Right, but what we need to do is stay woke. I mean, right now we awake in bed and have to realize that the Fed is doing nothing but jawboning, and we need to get on our government to get us back to work.
Yeah.
Right now, everybody's sitting around with their hands in their pocket talking about the government's giving me $300, and the state said they broke, they can't afford to give me that other $100. and we're gonna continue down this line, and they're just like you said, they're squeezing us for all they can get.
Yeah.
And when we're done squeezing us, here comes the digital.
Yeah. And so, I got a couple articles on all that too, man. So, all right, man, appreciate you.
Keep your head up.
Yep, you too.
Bye.
Yes, sir. So let me actually, speaking of which, let me get to a couple more articles here and then get ready to dial back. And so here's an article that I wanted to touch on. Boston Fed is looking at 30 to 40 blockchain networks for digital dollar payments. So of course, they're trying to further put information out there that they're trying to speed this thing up, and they're going to explore decentralized networks. So which of course, I don't think they're going to do that, because once again, that'll make their transactions transparent to the world. And they don't want that. They don't want transparency. And so I think this article is a bunch of hype, but it just shows that they paid employees to go out there and talk and investigate and learn how to come up with a plan for the digital dollar. Is coming out pretty soon. Hello, Carlos. Where are we calling from?
Hey, Mike, it's low blood pressure. Corpus Christi, Texas. How you doing?
Corpus Christi. I'm doing good, my man. How you doing? What's going on with you? What's your thoughts on this whole situation here?
It's just crazy, Mike. I don't think, like I said before, I don't think the stock market's ever going to crash. I think it's just going to hyperinflate. Everybody says that deflation is going on right now.
Yeah.
They can't afford it, Mike. They can't afford deflation.
Right. Now, watch this. The market, I don't think the equity markets will completely crash, but there's going to be a correction point, which will create fear in the markets that will then inspire them to rapidly further expand their monetary base. So I think I don't think it can continue to go up without any true corrections to send it up further. And so that's what I mean by pulling the plug. I still think between now and the day that we're supposed to go in and vote, for somebody, that they can pull some type of plug, creating a stir and a panic to really derail anything that's going on. And then it's going to take off even more. So yeah, it's going to continue to go up. Venezuela stock market right now, all-time high. So if you want to profit, get in Venezuela's markets, I'm saying? And it's a worthless currency. So yeah, it can go up to ceiling, but then, what are you really holding on to? So anyway, go ahead.
The thing is if they could print infinite, then the stock market is going up infinite, because that's the only thing paying right now.
Yeah.
Bonds aren't paying, treasuries aren't paying, interest in the bank definitely is not paying.
Yeah.
So it's got to go somewhere. It's looking for a yield, and that's the only place right now where there's yield.
Yeah. Housing prices, there's still room for inflation in the housing market in certain sectors. So that's another area. It's the illusionary net worth effect is what they're most concerned with at this current moment. Making sure this average middle class saver, investor, whatever, feels a little bit of comfort and not completely uncomfortable just yet.
Yeah, I don't know, but the housing market it's all based on your ability to borrow,
Correct.
Maybe high end. I don't know. I think the housing's going to correct somewhat more than the stock market.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to ask you something else, Mike.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. What's your exit plan? You got it ready?
Not really, man, because I think this experience that we're currently involved in, it's going to become extremely unnerving, unsettling, and unpredictable. So you can come up with the plan, but yet I think at the end of the day, it's going to be hard to execute it. But of course, you can try to plan as best you can, but I don't really have an exact science as to how, because I don't think there'll be no exiting as long as you're on this planet. But yet there'll be ways of benefiting from the crumbling of everything that has been artificially propped up. Yes, but yet I'm not confident that the world we're going to be living in is still something that you will be able to truly enjoy with all your freedoms intact. So the exit plan right there is all subject to change. So that's kind of where I stand. Not to sound too doom and gloom, but
I hear you, Mike. Like I think about exiting the country, and everybody's gonna go where the best life is.
Yeah.
And if you got a little bit of silver in your pocket, that's even better. So I don't know. I just gotta look at the world and see where the best place to live is, and that's where everybody's gonna go. Just like everybody came here once,
Yeah, I do agree. And then the biggest thing is that depending on how bad things get, if it gets to the point, 5+ years out, according to a scripted agenda, it's going to be hard to travel internationally without having some paperwork. And so it's going to be a matter of trying to get around that to actually leave your own state, more than likely, nevertheless the country. So those are all things to factor in as well. So, one of the things I was thinking about is, if you have a passport now, look at the current time between now and expiration. That might be your window of opportunity to actually have a passport that legally allows you to travel before you have to renew it. Because once your current passport expires, whatever you got to get renewed into will be something that you don't want to be probably want to have to get a hold of. So that little window between now and expiration date on your passport might be your window if you're going to try to do something for whatever countries are open. So just my little 2 cents there.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mike. But you know, when money talks, you know,
yeah,
when anywhere you go, if you got X amount of dollars to invest, automatic passport, you know,
yeah.
although a U.S. passport is good for just to come back to America, but they have to let you in. You know, they're just going to take a little bit of more time asking you questions, but you can come back in without a passport.
Yeah.
They're not going to deport you. You know where they're going to take you to. You know.
Right, and then also, and another thing, and that's a part of your overall portfolio strategy plan of like, okay, if you're planning on being a traveler and being able to geographically relocate, you can't take much weight with you. Like, so unless you got some things set up to where you can still get access to it abroad or whatever, that's stuff that you got to factor in as well. So all that right there comes into your overall game plan. And so those are things to think about for those that might have interest and really considering that, because, you know, we still got a little time. So, yeah, so a complete game plan is like, you know, good luck with that. But you can have some ideas as to what you would like to do. And that's kind of what I'm putting together now myself. So still, and it changes consistently.
You're gonna, hey, Mike. All right, I'll get off right after I ask you this. You're gonna make some videos about traveling abroad and things like plans you could do or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Before this whole health situation jumped off, that was a part of my plan. Like going to Colombia, I got a couple more places I was going to go to. That was a part of the idea of showing what the current Federal Reserve note could purchase in certain areas. But you know, now we're kind of hindered. So the countries I was going to hit, you know, they're not accepting foreigners right now. So I had a chance to go to Mexico this past week. Had a great time down there, but Mexico is not the same Mexico it was a couple years ago. So it's a much different Mexico down there now. But but hey, man, I appreciate you, man.
All right, Mike. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
Good to hear you back.
Oh, yes, sir. Good to hear you. Thanks. Yeah, man. So that's what it is, man. But it was had a nice little trip. Got a chance to unplug, unwind, and yeah. So anyway, with that being the case, got ready to dial back. Part of my new strategy is, dialing back on time and trying to do more live streams and whatnot. So as always, I appreciate those that are participating with me and hanging out with me. It's always good to hear from you guys. One important message, man: stay educated, stay prayed up, get your weight up, and prepare as much as you can by staying ahead of the curve. And basically, any necessities, consumer items that you need, that you use regularly, create your, continue to add to your current supply reserves of your everyday necessities in the days ahead, because it's September going to heat up in a very uncomfortable way, because they're going to put more pressure on us to squeeze our remaining savings up out of us. So that is what it is. So Kendi says, Mike, do you need a passport for Mexico? Yes, you need a passport. And so just to give you the idea, so that the whole travel situation is Mexico, it's already, Cancun being a touristy area, apart from staying in a resort, there was not much life outside resorts as far as tourism. Like it was a lot of people there, but it's still bare. Like the resort we stayed at was at 30% capacity. And so that means they're losing funds left and right, even though it seemed like there was a lot of people there. So, but had a great time. And so, definitely would like to go back again. But anyway, enough ranting, man. As always, for those that have enjoyed the back and forth, don't be afraid to donate a thumbs up. Click the button down beneath here. And then also, what I've done is actually with some of my buddies over at Leo Gans, as well as Kenneth and Daniel, who put together great special reports with little nuggets that add value. And so I'm going to make sure that I make it available for you guys if you're interested. If you're already not on the special report updates, here's an interesting one here about the dollar that I think you guys will definitely want to hear, because they always leave you thinking a lot. Leave you thinking a lot. So here, if you guys are interested here, you can just download this report here. I'll put this in the chat, and then also you can find it beneath the video here. And so it's one of the things, just sign up for it and get an email and read it, and you'll be thankful you did. So anyway, if that been the case, be blessed, be safe, and I will see you guys tomorrow, Lord willing. Peace.